I'm your host, Aaron Dykes, on the InfoWars Nightly News. Now, we talked before about the escalating police state, and unfortunately, there's just more and more evidence of it. As we go into that, I want to remind you in our daily quote of the words of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and that is that those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. And we turn now to our news and see that this is in fact surely happening, because new microchip knows your location to within centimeters. That's on new smartphones, a new chip they're going to be putting in there. Forget the chip on your forehead.
Regardez-moi ça. Ah, il est beau, il n'y a pas à dire. L'orgueil du Troisième Reich. Le brave sergent café au lait qui porte le petit déjeuner à ses hommes. Oh. La race des seigneurs qu'ils appellent ça. Eh ben, mon cochon.
Profond de la nuit, il ne faut jamais désespérer. Gardons notre foi intacte, inébranlable. Pour chacun de nous, la délivrance approche.
Les Français parlent aux Français. Voici notre 8e bulletin d'information. Veuillez écouter tout d'abord quelques messages personnels.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
You know, if you study history, wild, extreme government killing is the norm. Every culture, at one time or another, has demanded the firstborn young be killed and given to the state. Given to the state to be killed. That's part of purging the underclasses. So elites in every culture always thought the population was too great. Every time they've got enough slaves to do their work for them, they start seeing them as roaches that they want to get rid of. There's total disdain in elites across cultural lines throughout history. You'll have, you know, the founder of a civilization or a city-state who is intelligent and altruistic in many cases, but their great-great-grandchildren just become unhappy, spoiled, rotten scum, and there's all the sex and power, and they're worshipped as gods, and they always want to be able to arrest whoever they want, rape whoever they want, and burn down cities for fun. It's a tropism, like a plant sprouts out of a seed and goes towards the sun. This is what civilization is. Those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it. This is what civilization turns into during times of decadence. And if we're not decadent right now worldwide, I don't know what is. Now, Paul Watson last week wrote some articles off of an Army manual that the government and others, and the media has covered it. They've confirmed, yeah, this is a real Army manual. This is what's currently being taught in the last 2 years to prepare for re-education camps of political dissidents in America. And more than 30 places, it says, for U.S. citizens, Social Security numbers, how to arrest us, how to duct tape us, how to put us in stress-compliant positions, torture, and how to use us for forced labor. Well, that's always been the point. The civilian inmate labor camp program was the beta testing of convicts under U.S. military control, state and federal inmates. Now it's going to go to the political dissidents. And that's the whole point of this. I mean, that's Walmart built its business on political slaves in factories. They're locked up in jail cells at night. They're brought into highly controlled factories during the day. Most Chinese public schools now, the children go to school part of the time, work in factories, the other part. Firework factories and, Foxconn factories building Apple iPads. There's a lot of blood found in the textiles now. Little kids literally work their fingers to the bone. So this is what's going on. And so we built this horrible economy that destroyed our old real economy, our value-added economy, on slave goods. Now we're going to become, it's kind of like bulkheads in a ship, and you lower one, the water comes into the next. So globalism lowers everybody. It doesn't rise anybody up but the globalists. Because, again, they're eugenicists that want to set up a world police state to cut off resources to kill the majority of us in the wars and the famines that come out of it and the depressions, and say, you're on welfare now, but you've got to be sterilized. And I have a stack of news from Latin America, Asia, India, where you want health care? Sterilize yourself. Indian father forced to have a vasectomy to save his son. He was forced to have a vasectomy by doctors in exchange for treating his young son after he was bitten by a suspected rabid dog. That's just standard. It's always been that way for 50 years. India offers cars and TV sets for sterilization. And again, there's almost more Indians than there are Chinese. I understand that in many areas of India it's hellish. But the point is that this is being done covertly, and you need to know about it. And just because you're some racist white yuppie, and you're like, come on, there are too many people. Really? It's being done to you. But the globalists hate you even more. You're the number one enemy, because we have the birthright of the Magna Carta and the Republic and 1776 Declaration of Independence. All the trouble the New World Order's had has come out of the West. The New World Order conquered the West and now has its power because of it. But the fight is here. The evil is here in Western Europe, the UK, the United States, Australia, New Zealand. The evil is centered there. But it's also the good is centered there. So this is where the controls are. This is where the battle's happening. And we are dead. The West is dead. 1.3 replacement rate for every 2 parents. We're dead right now. Most actuaries show it can't even be reversed. If the average person started having 7 children, and they've economically made it. I saw articles this weekend in the U.S. where they're now saying just being poor, the CPS is going to try to take your kids now. You think you're going to go out there and live on the land? They're coming. They're coming. They're coming. They're coming. Now, I want to take you to Paul Watson, and then we'll take calls in the second hour. We've got a lot of other news we're going to get to as well, but Paul Watson wrote an article last Friday, and it said Obama mentor wanted to put 25 million Americans in re-education camps. And this is the type of self-censorship, because people, it's a meme, a weak COINTELPRO meme, say we exaggerate or that it's hyperbole. And sometimes I do exaggerate, not on purpose, but, it's a natural thing to do. And I catch myself and back it off. But that's probably 1 time out of 100, literally. Most of the time when I hear my show later, I am cutting back on how hardcore it is. I'm automatically governing it because I can't even believe it at a subconscious level. It's so incredible. And I called Watson up and I said, hey, buddy, your headline says he wanted to incarcerate 25 mil. It says kill, liquidate, kill. And then I go in and we start having a debate about what eliminate means. And I go, he goes on to say, means kill. Put kill. They want to kill, kill, kill. And is it sensational? You bet. Tyranny is sensational. DARPA coming out and saying, yes, we're going to microchip the troops. I got news for you. It's already been going on with officers and special forces. I don't just have documents and news articles on it. I've got family. And again, these cops call and I go, oh, so you've been training with the military. Oh, you've had the military and warrant service. Well, Alex, I'm not really supposed to talk about it, but yeah. You're not supposed to talk about it because it's illegal. Torture is illegal. Ordering people to torture is illegal. And of course, you said, well, it's just Al-Qaeda. Oh, it ended up being raping children. This is where it always goes. It's what it always turns into. The globalists want to legalize everything they do. And so what they're doing is they're just legalizing it in practice. They're just setting precedents. And now that we get deeper down the mine shaft, it's going to get crazier and weirder by the day, okay? They want the average person to be like a child and to be unable to deal with real issues. And so I've read the document, over 100 pages of it. Watson's read the whole thing. It's got duct tape, hoods over heads, solitary confinement, stress positions, and it has whole paragraphs on how great these laborers will be for Army jobs. So it's got slave labor. See, we call it forced labor. There's Watson ratcheting back what it really is. It's slave labor. The stress positions described and the rest of it, that's torture. So here's the headline today. Re-education camp manual includes rules on isolating political prisoners. Document also describes forced labor. My headline would be, Army prepares forced labor camps for American citizens. Again, I'm not criticizing Watson here. I'm trying to get us all to get our minds around this. If you've studied history, what's about to happen is the norm. Okay? People are like, this can't be happening. It's all happening. They're telling you, give up all your rights because of Al-Qaeda that's non-existent. Meanwhile, in 1 week, there have been, 36 beheadings on the U.S.-Mexico border. I mean, it's total war bedlam. And the government's all saying the American people are the enemy. The government isn't the government. Paul Watson has now read the entire document, 300-plus pages. I just did Control-F searches through it and read over 100. And we've had the COINTELPRO calling in saying, oh, it's not for citizens, when the whole thing says it is, just to make the debate about is it for citizens, hoping we wouldn't read deeper. And the few guys that got through had this power trip in their voice, very calmly saying, it doesn't say that, because they feel like they're part of the system. They feel like they're going to be part of this. And let me tell you, all these TSA people that are going to be the new National Police Force, they are looking forward. Of course they're full of pedophiles and pervs and people. Who else wants to do that? They're going to be the dungeon keepers. And the system admits they're going to be manning the emergency centers. So the police and military are going to go out and arrest you, and they're going to take you to these facilities just filled with potbellies, with cattle prods and stuff. And let me tell you, I've always been for peaceful resolution of this, but no one can go to a re-education camp. They are going to rape your wife and rape your children. They love it. This is the spawn of literal hell that is upon us. These are enemies here in this country. Paul Watson, break down the latest. We've got to get this article out to everybody, and we need another one. We need to title this, you know, Army Establishing Slave Labor Camps for Americans. I mean, and notice the few mainstream media outlets that report on this are like, oh, well, it's no big deal. Maybe it's needed. I mean, this is how far we've come, Paul.
Well, sometimes, Alex, it doesn't matter what headline you put on it. People will find any way possible to deny it. And as you said, first they said it wasn't for citizens. We disproved that with about a dozen or more separate examples where it says directly if the president passes an executive order that nullifies posse comitatus, then everything in this manual applies to U.S. citizens. And there's several references to U.S. territory. There's a reference to identifying prisoners via social security numbers. So we proved beyond doubt that it does apply to U.S. citizens. So then this whole new thing about oh, this is just a scenario. It's just a plan for some future event. They're always making plans, the army. This will never happen. It's not a plan. It's a manual. It's to train people. This is how you treat detainees in detention camps. And as we saw from Abu Ghraib, I mean, they treat them a lot worse than what's in this manual even. But this says directly that it's all designed to occur in the US as well. So today, this morning, I went through it once again and found this provision about forced labor, which is, again, if you do a Control-F search, like you said earlier, you can find all this. Page 277 of the manual states, detainees constitute a significant labor force of skilled and unskilled individuals. These individuals should be employed to the fullest extent possible in work that is needed to construct, manage, perform administrative function for, and maintain the internment facility. So they're going to employ, through forced labor, the detainees, the prisoners, to build and maintain their own prison camp.
And well, that's what the New World Order prison planet is. We build our own prison camp. The whole thing's a re-education camp. And that's exactly what I said on RT last week, because I've studied these. These camps are actually to create the trustees to go out and be the operatives in the general public. The real political detainees, they'll never be released. This is mainly a boot camp system for displaced persons, and they become the slobbering, fawning trustees.
All right. It talks about the political prisoners will be separated from the rest of the camp population, and they'll use the PSYOP propaganda on some of the camp population to become informers on the rest of them. So, yeah, that's exactly what it says. And also, with this whole labor issue, the re-education camps, the infamous ones in China and North Korea, which is why all this is so chilling, because the people who don't know that don't know its origins. They don't know that there's 200,000 North Koreans currently in re-education camps over there. But the whole idea behind them is not really re-education. Once they're in the camps, there's no plan to, you know, release them back into society, the political prisoners. It's all about back-breaking forced labor, 14 hours worth of, you know, hard slog with little food and completely inhumane conditions. So that's the case in China and North Korea. And that's why it's such a threat in these manual documents, because, as I said, it mentions forced labor. Also, another thing I found just before, well, about half an hour ago, originally we went with the headline, leaked U.S. Army document outlines plan for re-education camps in America. And in this manual, they outline how these PSYOP officers will indoctrinate political activists to accept their view of U.S. policy. And they use that word, indoctrination. But if you actually go and look at page 281, they're so brazen that they do use the exact term re-educating. It says, planning and conducting PSYOP to achieve other multinational and or joint PSYOP task force or PSYOP support element objectives, such as reorienting or re-educating the IR facility population, that's the prisoners, or setting the stage for acceptance of future operations. So on page 281, they directly say that these officers are responsible for, quote, re-educating the camp population. So how anybody can be exaggerating that when it's right there in black and white in an army manual training document, again, the level of denial knows no bounds.
And remember, well, that's a psychological warfare point, is to always just deny, even as the tank is ramming into your house, they're blaring, we're not assaulting, come out with your hands up. You come out, they found, most people will, oh, and then they shoot you. So it's just like in Mars Attacks, to use a children's analogy. The aliens are running around killing everybody with a loudspeaker saying, don't run, we are your friends. And the people come out with their hands up, and the aliens shoot them and go, ha, 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 because it's so funny to them. And that's what's so funny, is they call us the extremists who are awake to this and then sit around laughing. It's like Karl Rove telling the media at a cocktail party, New York Times, Washington Post, he said, we control reality, you'll do whatever we say. And the media said, you're right, sir, we'll do whatever you say. So they could say the sky is, black at high noon. When it's not, the media will say it. And here's the deal. They're already in police manuals now saying, go ahead and pick somebody up and take them in I've seen this in law enforcement magazines, if they've got to get us out of the UN sticker for questioning. And then now you'll just, at first they're starting to set up these facilities where they just take you in for no reason. Everybody's getting used to being arrested. The police have been told, arrest people for no seatbelt, get everybody in the system. Next time you get arrested, you don't come back. And they just hand you over to the feds, you disappear. And for a while, they're going to get away with that, but then everybody is just going to start resisting when anybody pulls them over. But that's part of the plan then, and the government's going to say, look, see, the American people are terrorists. They're starting to shoot any cop that pulls them over. I mean, can police see where this is going to go?
Well, I mean, police are going to be involved with doing it because it says, you know, DHS, ICE, FEMA, civil support operations in the aftermath of man-made disasters, terrorist attacks, accidents, or incidents in the U.S. and its territories.
All right, your Skype's breaking up, Paul. It's usually fantastic. We'll check things on your end and our end, reconnect with you, and come back. Yeah, I mean, this is forced labor camps. It's got torture stuff in it. I mean, we have been captured by a foreign banking cartel. We are occupied. We've still got some media systems. We are the counter-revolution they warn of. That's why police and all your manuals were demonized. We're what's left of America. It's so simple, but you've got to wake up to the occupation to understand it. Here's Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was in the Russian slave camps, and how we burned in the camps later, thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family, or if during periods of mass arrest, as for example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, paling with terror at every bang on the downstairs door and every step on the staircase, but had understood that they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, or whatever else was at hand. These are folks that didn't have guns. The organs would have very quickly suffered a shortage of officers and transport, and notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt if we didn't love freedom enough. And even more, we had no awareness of the real situation. We purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward. Alexander I. Solzhenitsyn. Well, I'm Alexander Jones of Texas, of the once great Republic of the United States, and we are occupied worldwide. The same management system is in Europe, is in Australia, is in Canada, is in Mexico. It's global management government. And they now are putting TSA everywhere. They're now setting up checkpoints everywhere. They've now got fascist propaganda. They're now admitting they're all listening to us. All of this is happening. World government's being announced. England, total tyranny is being announced. Exact same stuff. Disappearances, secret arrest. China's got the same system. This is global government. We're toe-to-toe with the New World Order. And all over the document, how DHS is going to round us up and put us in camps. And they are hiring with psychological tests. Well, who they hire at the camps in Iraq? People kicked out of federal and state jails for raping people. They're building armies of just the most deranged, sickening demons you can imagine. And they're going to send the police and military out to grab us and carry us back to them. And let me tell you, the public deserves what they get, and those that are part of this deserve what you get. Paul Watson, your comments you were trying to get to on the rest of the document.
Well, I was just making the point that there's this whole meme about, oh, this is on Infowars.com, that means it can't be true. There's a quote that says, this is a continuation of the Infowars narrative of internment camps. This is not a territory. That's what I think.
Yeah, see, we're bad because we're right. When we're right, that's the proof we're bad. We're crazy because we're right. People can't admit that we're right. It's not like, oh, you were right, let's do something. But that's psyops. That's the minority you're listening to, Paul. But it does show they're psyoping.
Well, A, it's laziness because they can't be bothered to read. It's 326 pages. They can't be bothered to read any of it. So it's easier just to say, oh, that's from Infowars. It's probably BS. But B, my thinking, you know, the media got excited a couple of months ago about President Bashar Assad's emails that were leaked with some mindless nonsense in them. Imagine if they found a leaked document out of Syria where Assad planned to intern political dissidents, forced labor and re-educate them. Do you think the media would be interested? Well, yes, they would. Not in this case.
Well said. We have to invade. They have Al-Qaeda blowing up stuff, and in the news say, see, we've got to go in. Assad's bad because Al-Qaeda blew stuff up. I mean, my gosh, well said, Paul. Let's come back and explore that more. Then I'm going to give the number out. Stay with us. We get an Army manual. It's confirmed to be real. And it gets massive traffic on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, but almost no one else picks it up. And if they do, they just say, well, what's wrong with re-education camps? What's wrong with torture? What's wrong with slave labor? So, Paul, I think you need to do an article with a boil down of all of it and just say, you know, proof that media is complicit or you know, media refuses to cover slave labor, U.S. slave labor camp news, and point out the whole thing with the Assad regime, because this is, or maybe a headline, the United States becoming North Korea, or media will not cover U.S. North Korean style slave camps, because we need to punch this out into the media, and because the reason they won't cover this, just like it took a week for my act that we broke to get out in the news and other documents, and Ron Paul's office got calls, and Lord bless him, he's like, we don't know if that's real for a week. They, you know, no one would just call the FBI and find out it was real, or call, you know, the state police there in Kansas or Missouri and find out it was real. We've got to force this out in the open, because of course they're not covering it. It shows how controlled the media is, that this is confirmed slave labor camps, slave labor re-education camps. And it just shows they will not cover it. They will not, because also, it's not just that they're controlled. Then they've got to admit we're right. Then people have got to admit stuff's scary. And this creeping national security states all around them, Paul.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? They can't cover it because they can't deny it. They can't make up some little excuse about how we exaggerated it, because, I mean, take the article I wrote on Friday. Yes, the re-education camp manual does apply domestically to U.S. citizens. That is 50–60% of it is direct quotes. Most of the rest of it is screenshots. You can't exaggerate direct quotes. You can't put a spin on them when they're directly lifted from the manual itself. So that's why they don't want to cover it. And people deny it because they haven't lived through hundreds of years of history whereby in every country, in every century, a group of people get persecuted. Whether it's, you know, Jews in Nazi Germany, blacks during the slavery era, Catholic priests in 16th century England that had to hide in priest holes because goons would come and try and hunt them down and kill them. And the 21st century is going to be the century of persecution of political dissidents. And this whole thing about building detainment, internment camps to house them is a central part of it. But people can't handle it because they haven't lived through history, they don't know history, and they think that just because we've got computers and satellite television and smartphones that none of this can happen, even though it's happened in every other century throughout history. Again,
I liken it to one roach you see, and then you see 20. There's thousands. If you're seeing 20 roaches when you turn the light on, that means there's thousands in your house, you know, in the basement, in the crawl spaces. They have lined up this giant operation, you know, 50 times, literally, bigger than the Manhattan Project, of total control, surveillance. The cops all feel like they're special because they're part of it and have the military with them on gun raids and stuff. It's all illegal. There's just a giant national security state bringing the drugs in. It's so corrupt now it snatches little kids. I mean, it's just, people have no idea that just all around them is pure evil. And then, Paul, I just don't know what to do. I mean, this is incredible.
Well, people wouldn't have believed that the federal government would have hired goons to feel up kids and, you know, get on buses and interrogate people. But it's happening. It's happening right now. So stop living in denial.
Paul Watson, I want to come back and give you 2 or 3 minutes to finish any other points you've made, but just incredible points so far. Help us save this country and the world, folks. This is so real. Look at it. It's all around you. Oh, man. Obviously, some people are listening. 5 million guns a month being sold. This is not a contingency plan. It is the manual of the takeover of America and the arrest of political dissidents that don't want to go along with the New World Order. We have all the other training manuals of who they're going after. It's gun owners, conservatives, libertarians, returning veterans, retired police officers, anybody who isn't going to go along with total socialism leading into communism. But again, run by big banks who are offshore, who want to destroy the economy, re-educate the population, transfer the wealth to themselves, and then come in with a fake revolution like with the Russians and call it free market, but where everybody's poor except for a tiny elite. That's really the model, is they bring in the socialism, then the communism, then that implodes, and they bring in fascism. And, of course, in the colleges the globalists have financed and run, they don't teach that. They teach socialism and communism are at odds with fascism. But in all the top globalist documents that I've read and things written by people like Carol Quigley, Tragedy and Hope, who's one of their top historians, he explains that fascism or neo-feudalistic serfdom control sits atop the socialist combine. Then they bring in the Red Terror commie level next. We're getting ready for that. They would like to bring it in. The fact that we're here raising the alarm may back it off. Again, if you just joined us, I'm Alex Jones. This is Infowars.com. We have Infowars Nightly News every night at 7 o'clock. I want to do this again today. I've got all this incredible world news, all this stuff happening. The big elections in Europe. I covered some of that at the start of the last hour, but none of that is important compared to the giant police state that's being rolled out now that's been built behind the scenes. Re-education camp manual includes rules on isolating political prisoners. Document also describes slave labor. Paul uses the term forced labor. And under FEMA, the 10 regions, under the FEMA Corps, all of this, the clergy response teams, the InfraGard, the citizen spies, it's for the American people. It isn't for Al-Qaeda. Al-CIA, Al-Qaeda is run by the CIA, duh. Al-CIA, duh. And the CIA doesn't work for the United States. It works for the foreign banks. On record. That's what's happened. Europe's been conquered by Goldman Sachs. We've been conquered through fraud. And they plan on using total police state to enforce their capture. The United States has been captured. They're now moving in to try to censor the web and talk radio. They're now trying to mop up the resistance. I got news for them. Too late. We already sent out the emergency transmissions. And don't look at the mall Martians and the zombies out there and think you've got America beaten. There is a large core of people that, quite frankly, is growing. It's over 25% that is really figuring out what's going on. There's about 5% that's super hardcore. 25% is accelerating their awakening. 40 to 50% is somewhat awake. Congress has a 9% approval rating. Most people, though, have just given up and just said that's a bunch of crooks. And it's time to give the number out. I want to hear from police and military. I've told you all this was coming. I told you TSA on the streets was coming. I told you that your appliances were surveilling you. It was in all the patents and admitted. I told you all this is now admitted. All this is now admitted. What do we do now that I've been proven right? Not because I'm smart. It's all public. I saw them say the G20 in Pittsburgh was the model for the rest of the world. I saw them 12 years ago, 13 years ago in '99 say no free speech in Seattle on video. The First Amendment has been suspended. They said it on the news and on loudspeakers. I've witnessed it everywhere. They do these little mini martial laws and bring cops in from everywhere to test and make sure when they set off some nukes or something or release a bioweapon and pose as saviors on the news to make sure you go along with it. And they're going to have fake militia groups attack local police and people to get the war started, to get the civil war started, just like the globalists blew up Shiite and Sunni mosque to get each other killing each other in Iraq. That was part of that plan. That's been declassified. They're planning on this. Are we going to do it? I want to hear from the police and military. 800-259-9231. Had a couple of police calling last Thursday, and I'm like, have you done warrant service with military in police uniform? Yes, we have. See, the general public doesn't even know that. So, are you in a free country? Can you call in and talk about this stuff? What won't you put up with? Do you really buy the returning veterans are going to be the big terror group? Well, I guess when you try to take their kids and put them in re-education camps, they're going to start killing people, and they're going to be called terrorists. Understand, that's the plan. They're going to start fights with the American people and back us into corners, and when we defend ourselves, we're going to be called terrorists. Well, let me tell you who the terrorists are. It's the stinking foreign occupational government we've got that paid $20+ billion to move General Motors factories overseas. The terrorists are the people that have had the autism rate go from 1 in 25,000 to 1 in 58. The terrorists are the people butchering our Bill of Rights and Constitution. All right, I'm done. Toll-free number to join us, 800-259-9231. Police and military, I want to hear from you. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. I mean, what is it going to take? Are you going to just go along with the system because of peer pressure, because you think you'll be safe doing that? Because they plan on eliminating the patriots in this country and the police and military by having us kill each other. That's the globalist model, is divide and conquer. I don't want to be part of this. But it's clear now, looking at the tea leaves, looking at all the signs that are there, one of the main options, one of the main cards in the globalist hand, in their fist, is staged terror attacks, starting provocations, and going for a gun confiscation to start a civil war. The NRA's milquetoast, folks, and they came out last year and said, yes, they've got internal memos and documents that Obama plans to, quote, ban guns. That's the headline in his next term. Well, Romney will do it, too. Let me tell you something. They nuke a city, and Romney tells people to turn their guns in. A lot of them are. All right, going back to Watson. Watson, give people a final briefing. We're going to go to break and come back with phone calls.
Well, I found a definition on re-education camps, and it's re-education through labor, also called Laojiao, a form of penal detention in China or the Soviet gulags for, quote, re-education of class enemies and reintegrating them through labor into the Soviet society. And in this manual, this army manual that applies to US citizens, it says that the PSYOP team will be responsible for, quote, using indoctrination programs to reduce or remove antagonistic attitudes, as well as targeting, quote, political activists with such indoctrination programs to provide, quote, understanding and appreciation of US policies and actions. And then, as I said earlier, page 281, it says, reorienting or re-educating the IR facility population is, again, a role of the PSYOP officer. So admitted re-education camps, forced labor camps, applies to US citizens, and yet nothing whatsoever in the mainstream media. People should take these articles and just bombard ABC, CNN, all of them with these articles and say, are you going to cover this? What if President Assad in Syria was advocating forced labor camps, re-education camps for the rebels, the glorious Al-Qaeda rebels? Do you think they'd cover it then? Well, of course they would, but they're not covering it now because this applies in America. It's a direct threat, and it's another glaring example of how America is turning into a militarized police state.
And by the way, I've talked to the troops, but I've seen it myself in an MIT magazine. They brag. Everything done in Iraq with checkpoints, face scans, all of that, national ID cards, that's the model for Western countries. We are the enemy. The bankers run our military, and they're coming in with a system where our entire country is a giant re-education camp.
Yeah, that's why they've got 9,300 checkpoints they had last year. TSA is getting more funding. They're going to have even more checkpoints this year. And what's Iraq full of? Checkpoints, because it's an occupied country. America is fast becoming an occupied country.
Every new movie I watch that's an action movie is they say, oh, just a routine checkpoint in the countryside, in the city. They show every movie I see now, checkpoints, and they always say, oh, just a routine checkpoint. That's government propaganda placement in all the shows. I mean, folks, do you realize how deep we are in this? We are under total psychological warfare attack. This is a vicious assault. This is a very aggressive assault. And again, they don't want us to raise the alarm before the provocation event. They roll it out. That's why they won't cover it. They don't want this out until they stage the terror attack.
Yeah, and with the FBI fomenting every domestic terror attack we see, you know, getting the patsy in to start it all off, then it's a very real possibility, seeing as they've been caught behind every major domestic terror attack in the last 5-10 years.
And it's a mirror in England. They're putting in all the same legislation there and just said, yeah, we listen and watch everything you do without warrants in England. That's all over your news as well. Exact same system.
Yeah, it's a uniform program, which is why you see the same things at roughly the same time happening in Europe and America.
Global government, banker run.
Yeah, Goldman Sachs rules the world.
Well, you know, I've always tried to fix things. But, I mean, I got to tell everybody, folks, you can't go to a re-education camp. And when they started, it's going to be some unpopular group, and they're going to, you know, beta test it. Well, you know, plus, you know, we have the Emergency Centers Act because things are collapsing. That's how they're going to roll it out, is the millions of homeless are going to be in them at first. But then they're going to force everybody else into them. They're going to have a prison section. Go ahead.
Well, the DHS has already established camps for the threat of mass migration, and that was outlined in Rex 84. So, yeah, and as you've documented in Texas, they've already got camps for illegal immigrants. So they'll start it out on illegals, and people will support it, and then they'll extend it from there.
Well, that's what they admit they were planning to do. Thank you, Watson. All right, I want to hear from police and military. Thank you, Paul. 800-259-9231. I want to hear from active duty. I want to hear from police. Are you going to go along with this? Your call straight ahead, 800-259-9231. Infowars.com is the website.
Have you been to InfoWarsShop.com lately? Express your inner patriot with these brand new InfoWars t-shirts. Say it loud with the InfoWars Bullhorn shirt, or educate the sheeple with the Bill of Rights shirt. Grope the public's mind with the TSA shirt. And with this shirt, you can let the dark side know of the Rebel Alliance's power. All available at InfoWarsShop.com.
Ask yourselves, what are you doing in this time of great challenge? What are you doing to unlock minds?